So here's what we're going to dive into: dismissive avoidance and empathy. Okay. So one of the first things I want you to know is that the vast majority of dismissive avoidants that I've seen are extremely empathetic people, but they are often usually not expressing that empathy to their partners or loved ones out loud. Okay. So it can really look like from the outside that they're not empathizing, and in fact that they're even trying to dismiss situations that cause them to feel empathy. Now, if we could slow that down and we could open up that process and kind of like dissect what's happening, usually why a dismissive avoidant is dismissing your experience or your emotions is because they're feeling empathy, right? If they were neutral and it wasn't making them feel anything, they'd probably be okay to sit there and just listen. But because it's stirring something in them, what also gets stirred are the subconscious built-in associations about what empathy is and about what it means. So usually there are a few core programmed associations for the DA that are taking place first. Number one, there's a deep programmed association for the dismissive avoidant that says, well, empathy is not okay because, or not empathy is not okay. Feeling somebody else's feelings are not okay because everybody is responsible for their own emotions. Now, they don't want to think this, and they may not consciously believe this, but this is definitely their subconscious programming. There's a deep, because think about it, that's how they were conditioned. Like, you're responsible for your feelings. You have to deal with your own emotions. We are not responsible for each other's. And so from that perspective, when somebody's sharing feelings, they feel like, why are you putting, there's a confusion element. Like, why are you giving this to me? That's yours. Like, don't give me what I don't ask for, what I'm not willing to receive. And so there can be that. But more importantly, and what actually has a more profound impact, are these two other things. Number one, dismissive avoidants feel uncomfortable expressing empathy because they feel uncomfortable feeling your feelings. They feel uncomfortable feeling bad feelings, right? There's this subconscious association that basically says, I'm afraid of sharing responsibility for emotions. I'm afraid of you giving me your emotions, and because what that means inherently is I'm going to have to give you my emotions too, and that doesn't feel safe. And so there's that component, right? That even somebody opening up triggers this fear around vulnerability that they experience because it's vulnerable to share in somebody else's emotions, whether you are the vulnerable one doing the sharing or you're the one receiving the sharing. There's a certain degree of vulnerability and intimacy required on both ends. And what are the dismissive avoidant subconsciously programmed associations around intimacy and vulnerability? They're really not nice, right? Intimacy hurts. There's a lot of rejection that I've experienced in childhood. Not only does intimacy hurt, but also just connection, vulnerability in and of itself hurts, right? And so I don't want to participate in that, and there's that need to withdraw. And then the second really major component is also that in that sharing of emotions, it triggers the defectiveness or the shame schema around a dismissive avoidant, which is, if I'm vulnerable, I am weak. If you're sharing with me and I'm being vulnerable with you in that, I'm being weak, and that makes me defective. And those are some of the core beliefs that are coming up. Okay, so often what we'll see as a result is that the empathy of a dismissive avoidant is super internalized, right? It's super withdraw, there's a lot of sort of disconnection happening from it. It's they're trying to keep space in order to keep themselves safe. And so that's how they're sharing and communicating their empathy, is through this filter of almost disconnection, if that makes sense. So I'm going to answer a few more questions. This is the theme so far. And then we're going to talk about what to actually do with this and how to create change. So let's see. What do you think a DA's shadow side would look like? Well, a lot of their shadow side are their repressed traits. That's what shadow is, right? So it's a really great question. So a lot of what we would see in their shadow is the vulnerability trait, the expressiveness qualities, the openness, the emotionality, right? These are the things that are also going to naturally trigger them in other people because they've associated these things and made them bad within their own psyche and tried to repress them into the unconscious. And so this is what you're going to see as a result, right? Those things popping up and feeling bad. It's a great addition. And so part of like feeling empathy is allowing yourself to stop intellectualizing and actually feel what it would feel like inside of you if you were in somebody else's position, or what this person, knowing what you know about them. This is a more accurate version. I know that there are very tiny nuances of difference, but this is actually more appropriate because the other one can be more like sympathy. It's really about, can I sit and can I try to understand you and what your emotional experiences are as you, not as me? Because then we're coming from a place of sympathy and we're kind of like projecting onto the person. And so it's really important for us to be able to do that. And that's the essence of what empathy is and what it requires.